I'm Martha Scheeler, and I'm here to interview Laura Hobbs, who is running for Shasta County Supervisor District 2. How are you, Laura?
Great. Thank you, Martha. How are you?
I'm good. What's new in Shasta County?
Well, we've had a little bit of a lull as far as the Board of Supervisors meetings. The next meeting will be Tuesday, the 27th. The Election Commission, which meets on the Monday before, which is going to be February 26th, 2 p.m.
2 p.m. And it's in the
Board of Supervisors chambers. Yeah.
So the Board of Supervisors chambers on Mondays is the Election Commission.
Yes.
And that's open to the public?
Yes.
Okay. And it would be good if the public was there paying attention to what's going on.
Yeah. And we need more members to come and speak at the podium. They do public comment in the beginning, so you can usually get your comments in fairly quickly, which is nice.
Are those on the record? Do they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you bring something like a document to a Board of Supervisors meeting and you want to speak about the document, does that document end up being a part of their record?
Yes, it does. They add that into the agenda packet.
Right. And so if somebody wanted to just research and find out what happened at their Board of Supervisors, I'm assuming there's more than just Shasta County listening in. When I first started with the team, I didn't know.
Team Hope,
teamhopelibrary.org. I said, hey, I'll type some affidavits. And next thing you know, 2 weeks later, they're like, we need a leader for this team for public records. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it until somebody better comes along. Because I don't consider myself qualified. I didn't think I could lead anybody other than children because I could put them on a timeout, right? And my co-lead, this guy kept telling me, this is how you lead. This is what you do. And I was just like praying about it. And I'm like, God, I can't learn that and do all this. And it was like the idea probably was inspired. I'm like, hey, would you lead this with me? And that's Dawn, my co-lead. And we're figuring out how to get the work. He has an incredible resume, and he's led a lot of people and taught them a lot of life skills. And anyway, he says, hey, do you have any experience training? And my answer was potty training, and they're still dry. So, I mean, honestly, I had no professional leadership.
Yeah.
And he has taught me to be a leader. I am a leader because of his teaching. So here we are. I have actually done a little research in agendas, and you can go to the Board of Supervisors website. So you type in your county name, Shasta County Board of Supervisors, and then you go to the agenda. There's literally a PDF of every document that's presented. Is that correct? All the contracts for all the vendors. So everything is a part of the record. And if somebody's looking for that, I just wanted to give them a heads up that they can get that themselves.
Yeah, and it's a good thing to have before the meeting. I mean, sometimes these agenda packets are like hundreds of pages long.
Right.
So if you see an agenda item and you're like, wow, that's written really vague, I don't know what that means, you can go to this agenda packet, they call it, and there's often a lot more material there that will cue you into what the topic is actually about.
You're just so funny because you're so informed. And you didn't do any of this before when? Like 2021?
Yeah.
And you suddenly became knowledgeable. I laugh because I'm on different phone calls with different groups of people, and they're asking me questions like I'm an expert. And we talk about this. I'm not an expert. My dad used to always say an expert is an X is a has-been and a spurt is a drip under pressure. And so I don't really want to be that. But at the same time, it's amazing how much we've learned in this short time. Right?
Yeah. And all of us citizens, I think, need to start doing that, digging into what's going on in the local government, how they can get involved and how they can understand it. I know it's daunting and overwhelming, but it's not impossible,
No, and it isn't impossible. 3 years later with thousands of documents, and we're hitting it hard, and we're asking for things, and we're making legal arguments, and we've done a lot of research, and I'm on these calls with my team, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, we have an amazing team.
And we really do. You really do. You should feel very proud.
Well, and Laura is on my team now, just so you know. She's in my team meetings.
I'm trying to help out as much as I can, but honestly, I'm not as qualified as the others on the team. And
I don't know. You do bring a lot, and you add a lot to these. We have questions, and the thing that I'm impressed with is that you've been in the actual room where they count. You have observed the processes at the Registrar of Voters office. Personally, I'm sad that you're running for supervisor because I'd like you to be appointed ROV. That would be my dream for you, is you would run the place with integrity.
I've heard that from others as well. But honestly, Bob Holsinger was the candidate that ran against Kathy Allen. If anyone deserves the position, he does.
And he won.
And he won. Well, I can't say for certain that he won, but I can say for sure that there was cheating against him.
Right. Well, I told him he won. I told him he ought to act like it because when they were going to pay all this money to take those Dominion machines and get them back, I said, Bob, you ought to just get yourself a U-Haul truck, put a big old sign on the front saying, Dominion Transport System, I'll do it for free. He didn't go for it. I don't know why, but... So we talked about a little bit about the voting on Election Day. There's a lot of people that are saying we need to not mail our ballots in. We need to vote on Election Day so that they can't calculate how much they need to cheat. Is that right?
That's right. So I encourage people to vote on Election Day. If you vote ahead of time, you're letting them know in advance exactly how many votes they need to flip the election. Kinda like playing poker and showing everybody your hand. So it's not something that's wise. If you feel like the only opportunity you're ever going to have to vote is if you vote early and otherwise you won't have a chance to vote, then go ahead and vote early. But if you are able to vote on Election Day, that is the best way to do it. To leave your mail-in ballot at home or in the car, go to the precinct, sign in and get a precinct ballot, fill it out at the precinct and turn it in there.
And you said this because you had heard some people were suggesting to bring your mail-in ballot in the envelope, and so you asked some questions about that.
Yes, so today I talked to the ROV's office, and I asked them what's best. Do they need to bring in a pre-filled out ballot with already signed and sealed and just drop it off there? They said, yeah, you can do that. And I said, well, when does that ballot get counted? Is that something that then has to go through the Agilist machine and has to go through signature verification? And the answer was yes. If you submit it in an envelope sealed and signed, then it will have to go through signature verification, all this post-processing. The best way to do it is to do it in person. Mm-hmm. After you vote, you'll place your ballot in a privacy sleeve, and then you'll take the privacy sleeve over to a sealed box, put your ballot into the sealed box without anyone seeing who you voted for, so you can maintain the private ballot. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the night, when polls close at 8 p.m., they'll take those boxes from the precincts. I think we have, I'm not sure how many this time, but we generally have about 60, 68 precincts. They'll take all those boxes into the ROV office on Market Street, and then they'll take the ballots upstairs and run them through the Canon scanner in the back cave.
Canon scanner.
Yeah.
Yeah. That scanner couldn't be connected to the internet or anything, right? I mean,
those actually, I've read that the Canon scanners can connect to the internet. They have internal modems.
Right. What I was concerned about is if you have your ballot in the envelope, mm-hmm. what it does is it puts it in a different, let's call it a bucket. Okay.
Yeah.
So the bucket for the ballots in the envelopes, that is, has to go through a process of signature verification. There's things that they do that when you go to the precinct, they do that. They check your ID. You sign into your real life person. So mm-hmm. that streamlines it if you take it and you use the ballot at the precinct.
I'm suggesting not to take your mail-in ballot with you. I mean, you can bring it in the car if you want or leave it at home, but I'm suggesting that you just go into the precinct, sign their poll book there, which is an electronic poll book,
right,
and then use the ballot that they give you at the precinct to vote.
So the poll books are connected to the internet, and they say that the poll books are not part of the electronic devices of the election. And yet in the Secretary of State's website, the poll books were listed as part of the voting system.
That's what I thought.
And then they changed it for this election. They changed it so the poll books aren't part of the voting system. So they're allowed to be connected to the internet. And people who have access to the poll books, they can preload and figure out how many people are voting because they're getting data in real time. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. They call it near real time, and NGOs have access to that. They have to pay for it, but they can access that.
I bet they do. Zuckerberg and all those guys.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the Albert sensor, or is that a different thing?
The Albert sensor is different. That monitors internet traffic in and out of the county. So it's at the county level. What I've heard is that they can intercept the traffic going in and out. So, for instance, when the data is being sent from our ROV to the Secretary of State, it goes through this intermediary, the Albert sensor, and that could potentially even change the results at that step. So there's a number of different entry points,
Right.
and a number of different weaknesses where data could be flipped, changed, or what have you. I mean, last week we talked about the guy who did his dissertation, Mr. Barnhart.
Well, one of the things he said is with computerized voting, I'm quoting this from his dissertation, with computerized voting, the most essential weakness is undetected manipulation of the election results by malicious software. I developed software that can achieve exactly this type of manipulation by intercepting scanned images of ballots before they reach the tabulation software to change the votes reflected on them. This attack works specifically on voter marked paper ballots, but similar attacks have been demonstrated on other computerized voting equipment like direct recording electronic voting machines. Because software can introduce changes to the election results, the study shows why it's absolutely crucial to maintain a robust paper trail attesting to the will of the voters. So we've talked about it's transmitted through the Canon scanner that can be connected to the internet. There's these people that say, but it's not. We don't connect it to the internet. Just trust us. It's like, no, we don't trust you. We don't trust anybody when it comes to our votes. We've been watching some things happen that are very alarming. Even if here's another quote. Even if an election system has voter-verified paper ballots and a robust post-election audit, there are still means by which the result can be made incorrect. To demonstrate this, I examine a typical vote-by-mail scheme used in the United States. In principle, this system has voter-verified hand-marked paper ballots, and I assume the risk-limiting audits are performed. However, because of inadequate authentication of voters, the election is vulnerable to fraud and voter coercion. This is talking about signature verification, which we can't get with a public records request any information on the signature verification because it's done outside of the House. It's done by a private company, not subject to public records requests. So everything that's used to validate, they have, whoever they are, have effectively made it impossible to validate. Do you know of any county that has had an audit? Do you know of any county that's actually had a full audit where they've opened the ballots, unsealed them, and recounted them?
Not here in California.
I don't think so.
And
so that is the only way to verify what happened in the election would be to unseal those ballots. They're not allowing that to happen. The only way to make sure that the election was conducted fairly is to observe the counting.
One of the things, though, with that is that even if we have those paper ballots, if the chain of custody was broken, we're not necessarily seeing the true reflection of the will of the people if they had a chance to add more ballots, subtract ballots, and make the numbers match.
I heard about somebody finding in a conservative district mail-in ballots floating in the river because they just tossed them. So how do we know they're going to count our ballot unless we watch them count it? I think that counting ballots at the precinct level by hand before those ballots are transported, sealing the ballots with the proper chain of custody and saying these are the counts and having that observable, that is the only real way to do this. And New California State just did a demonstration of that. Did you know that?
Yeah, I heard about that. Tell me more.
Well, it was an election demonstration of hand counting paper ballots. It was using the Colorado clear box method, which is the ballots are put in a clear plastic box that voters can observe from beginning to end. They did it in one day. They counted at the precinct level. That is a very easy, inexpensive way to assure that the votes are counted. The state of California made it illegal to count ballots by hand for the official counting. But they didn't make it illegal to count them at the precinct level before they are moved from the precinct to the county office. The other thing that has to happen is mail-in ballots have to have robust signature verification. That should be done in the view of the voters as well. It should not be done by a private agency, a private company. That should be done right here on the county level, and it should only happen on election day. Couldn't the Board of Supervisors pass an ordinance requiring that these things happen that way?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that we need to do that. We absolutely must if we want to restore our faith in our election system. Right now,
it really isn't about us feeling good about this.
No, it's not.
It's like, this isn't about we need to feel good about elections. This is about our freedoms.
Exactly.
This is about having leaders that answer to the voters, that actually have to earn those votes. Right now, they don't have to. So they just smile and nod and they let us talk and they don't give a rip.
Exactly. So let's talk about counting ballots at the precinct. How does that make it more secure?
Well, for one, of course, we do the same things we've been doing where you're verified who you are. In the New California State election demonstration, they had people come and they brought a photo ID and they brought a utility bill or something that showed that they live. I mean, you can't even have a Google business profile unless you provide this. So why don't we do this for voting, right?
Exactly.
So you show that your address is where you live, same as your ID, and you are handed a paper ballot and you fill out the paper ballot. It's all done with secrecy. You don't have anybody seeing who you voted for. The ballot is put in a clear box. That box sits there until it's time to count. When the voting has ended and it was a time period, everybody was allowed to stay and watch them. And they tallied it. There were 2 people tallying and they had people counting and recording and there was verification. It was within a couple of hours. I think it was three hours. They could count an entire precinct. So why aren't we doing this?
Exactly. And we don't have more than 1,000 per precinct. So 1,000 votes and you get a few volunteers to sit there and count them. A couple hours, you're done. And I think that gives the highest level of transparency because we need to know at each precinct what was the total vote counts.
Right.
And that way you break it down to the lowest level. It's not sent to a centralized counting center or what I call a cheating center.
Right.
You have your neighbors working there. You have people that you trust and maybe even people that you don't trust, but you can look over their shoulder and check their math as they're doing it.
Right.
You have complete transparency and the ability to see with your own eyes. You don't have to trust someone telling you this is the result. Yeah. You can see it for yourself.
With all the questions that we have, and we're talking in actual cases before courts that are being heard, like the Georgia case, Curling versus Raffensperger, brought by a liberal who thought that maybe Hillary Clinton should have won. It was
really
2017.
2017.
In Georgia, we had J. Alex Halderman, a computer science professor who testified before them. His report was subject to a gag order. They kept the report secret. Raffensperger knew about the reports in 2020 on the phone with President Trump, telling him it was a secure election, everything's fine. And he's meeting with our registrar of voters and they were all invited to go to Nevada to meet with Raffensperger, I think last year. And it's like, why are they doing that? Well, it's to get their story straight. And we know this because our team has asked for records. We asked for the communications between the Secretary of State and the registrars of voters in every county, all 58 counties. Funny thing happened. We got some communications that show that they're coordinating their message. So we're watching this happen, and it means nothing unless we do something with that information. Are you right?
Exactly. So what does that mean, the fact that they're coordinating their message? Does this mean there's a bigger conspiracy at play?
Well, the definition of RICO has to do with a conspiracy to commit fraud. RICO, racketeering, it's a special class of crimes. If there was somebody that was willing to take this up, there could be charges of racketeering from every county in the state. Any sheriff, any DA in the state of California can take the records that we have, and they have all they need to prove that there's coordination to commit fraud.
And that's consistent with what Jeffrey O'Donnell found when he's looking at the cast vote record data. He saw the same Mesa pattern of fraud in almost every single election he looked at.
Right.
And this encompassed many different states.
If Rhode Island cheats, California voters are disenfranchised. If Riverside County cheats, people in Shasta County are disenfranchised. Every vote that's stolen is stolen from the entire group, right? And so when I talk about the RICO, it doesn't have to happen in Shasta County for the Shasta sheriff to pursue it. It can happen in another county, and it disenfranchises Shasta voters, and it's important for them to protect us and protect our vote.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we need hand-counted ballots at the precincts using paper poll books.
Right. Paper poll books, hand counted at the precinct. If they're going to use the poll books and we can't get them to stop, I mean, if you just count the ballots at the precinct, you have mitigated a big portion of the cheat. They don't know that they're committing crimes, but they are. They don't even realize they're crime. They know they're wrong, but they don't think they'll ever get caught because everybody cheats.
Yep. And we're in a unique situation here in Shasta County where our county has been captured. So I call the sheriff. I report election crimes being committed. You know, they don't respond. Our PD doesn't respond. Even if they did respond and send it up to the DA is not going to prosecute because according to the election cast vote record data, she's also not rightfully seated in her position.
Well, and that's the problem. I don't think that our police are the problem. But if we don't have a DA that's going to prosecute, it's probably pretty frustrating to them.
Yeah, this is kind of a white collar crime, I guess. You know,
well, and it matters to them. I think it matters to them like every crime matters to them because they've spent their career having to follow the rules. They're the first that are going to get written up or sued. Right? They have to follow the rules. And so I think it's kind of offensive to any police officer to see this level of just in your face, but they have to have a DA that will prosecute and they have to have a judge.
What can they do?
I think Shasta County Sheriff Johnson, they see this as a crime and I think they take it seriously, but they've got to see that they can win. I think that's coming quicker. I think we're seeing more and more sheriffs. When they had the Second Amendment bill trying to take our ability to have a concealed carry, we can have the permit, but we can't carry the gun. We had a lot of sheriffs that stood up and said, hell no, we're not going to enforce this law. And the Ninth Circuit, funny thing, Ninth Circuit said upheld the law. But then when the sheriff stood up and said, hey, no, the Ninth Circuit went, well, let's take another look at this. That doesn't happen. It happened because they knew that it wasn't going to be enforced. The sheriffs are not going to enforce these laws. They put their officers in greater danger when you don't have the ability for citizens to carry a weapon to defend themselves. And Shasta County's kind of fun because they sell a lot of ammunition up here. They there's a lot of gun ownership up here. The government that is captured, because I believe it is, keeps them from having the funds they need to staff, so that puts their officers at greater danger. Stolen elections.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's not just who's president. It's down ballot. Who's our senator? Who's our congressman? Who's running the RNC, right? Who's running our government? It's not the people we elect. It's the people who are running the people who we elect. And we have a president right now who there's no way Biden is running the government. Somebody is puppeteering him.
Yep.
And, you know, there's suggestions that it's Obama. Okay, doesn't matter. If anybody is doing the jobs that the president does for him that we didn't elect, it doesn't matter who it is. It matters that we have elected a president, which we didn't, but let's just say he was elected. We need to make sure that the people that we elect are actually doing their job, not lobbyists, not special interests, not the cabal.
Because ultimately, it's we the people that have to do the job.
Right.
We delegated our power over to them, but it's now time that we stand up and take that power back and say, hey, we're getting involved here. We don't like the way things are going. And we have to start from the bottom up at the local level.
Right.
And start making changes. On my flyers, I say, the citizens of Shasta County do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them.
Right.
So the agencies that serve them, that's everything from the county to the state to the federal government. So I think we need to do more and fill those gaps and be aware of the corruption that's happening within our local government right now.
We still retain the authority to govern ourselves
and our God-given rights.
Our God-given rights, right. Of the people, by the people, for the people, endowed by our Creator. Our rights aren't given to us by the government.
Exactly.
Our rights are given to us by God. We can't even give those rights away if we wanted to. They're not ours to give away. God gave them to us. And I was asked this week by a good friend why I think America is great. I really believe that America is great because it's God's idea. We had these founders of our country were imperfect men who didn't agree on a lot of stuff. Yet God led them by his divine provision to create the freedoms he intended for us.
Yes.
We should see this as our God-given role. Yeah, as citizens of the United States, I don't care if you believe in God. The point is, these freedoms that we have were created in our Constitution, in our Bill of Rights, in the documents that formed our nation, and we should defend and protect those. We're demonstrating to the future generations that if you want these freedoms, you stand up for them. You give up and sacrifice. I don't know how many times you have probably missed a meal because you've had to have a meeting or you've had to do something. Yeah, everybody can do something. You're raising your kids. You have a tiny little bit of time. All that time you spend on Facebook and Instagram, spend 2 minutes of that reposting Laura's videos. Repost what you see that is going to help for the people that are actually out there laying their life down. And Laura literally is. As far as the disturbance that happened at the Board of Supervisors, tell me what happened that day.
It was the evening meeting. So they were talking about the impact fees, and Nathan didn't want to wait his turn for public comment. So he came down the center aisle, just boisterously speaking loudly, saying that he thought this was a waste of county time and stuff that you might say at the mic in your 3-minute allotment of time. But he wanted to do it right then. He didn't want to wait for that. Kevin Cry, the chairman, asked him to stop.
So Supervisor Cry is now the chair of the Board of Supervisors. So he handled this by, what did he?
By clearing the chambers. That's kind of the standard protocol, is they ask everybody to leave. So by doing that,
cooling things down.
I guess so. And then just getting the troublemaker out of the room. And then after it's calmed down, they allow everyone back in. But this is a violation of penal codes. I think it's 405 and 415, which say that you're not allowed to disrupt the proceedings of a public meeting. So there are citations that can be made, and it's within the board's authority to have a sheriff officer there to make citations and to maintain order.
Was there a citation made? Do you know?
Not to my knowledge, but I think there should have been.
It might have been, and we just don't know about it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
If you're speaking before the Board of Supervisors and you're speaking regarding an elected official and they dishonor you by calling you names, it shows a complete lack of regard for who voted for them, who they represent.
Yeah. And that's been a way that they have tried to detract from the validity of our claims, is by belittling us and calling us these names. I've been called an election extremist or election denier and MAGA extremist, the whole gamut. But it doesn't stop me.
No, it's all not you. If anybody ever were to just watch you at the meetings, you're respectful. There's times when you've had strong opinions about things, but you say it with respect. They're not in reality, right?
And I think that the ROV, that's something that is part of, her playbook, is instead of actually fixing the concerns that the citizens have, she labels them and dismisses them as, extremists or whatnot.
If you don't have a good argument, you start calling names and throwing rocks.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like this guy, there was this, in baseball, there was Oakland A's had this coach, and he would go over and he'd argue with the umpire at home base, and then he'd kick dirt on him. And it was like so childish and ridiculous. And everybody would watch it because they wanted him to kick the dirt on him, and it was entertaining. That might be entertaining, but it's not going to get us where we need to go. So, well, Laura, thank you for meeting with me.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
It was good to interview you. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Bless you.